here. I have distributed a few handouts here. I emailed everybody, sorry about this. I emailed everybody last night the public notice of our meeting, along with the minutes of our February 5th meeting. But I realize they come through by email just in black and white, and so I asked Ann Freitas, I don't know what we would do without her, to make color copies for us, which I handed out tonight, which I just think makes it easier to see where are the changes and what do they look like. These are the changes that we voted on at our last meeting.
She's done an amazing
She's done an amazing job. She's really great. And I also have some additional handouts that I made just now, in addition to the color copy of the minutes. Items that I think will answer some of the questions that came up at our last meeting. So I would say that the first task of the night is to approve those minutes of February 5. But again, I just handed out the color copies. If you feel you need more time, we can postpone that vote. But if you feel ready to do it, what's the pleasure of the committee?
I think it's fine.
I think it's fine.
I'd make a motion to accept minutes of February 5th.
I'll second.
Who seconded, Mike? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Abstaining from the,
Thank you.
abstaining, Sally, since I wasn't here.
Thanks for reminding me, Mary Beth. So this was the minutes of Feb. 5. Thank you all very much. So among the handouts, I'm trying to think of which set of handouts it is. I've included a statute which deals with the town manager employment contract. The last time we met, we were discussing Section 11 of the Town Manager Act, and we decided we were trying to deal with that severance pay question, and we decided we didn't have enough information to make a decision. So I pulled the statute, which I shared with you, which basically says, so this is a Massachusetts law that leaves it to cities and towns to enter into contracts with a town manager, and that contract can include severance pay, and it has to be in accordance with and subject to the provisions of the town charter, and that nothing contained in this section of the law can or shall affect the appointment or removal powers of any city or town over its town manager. There's a couple of statutory references in here, which I double-checked. Mass General Laws 32, it deals with municipal retirement systems and pensions. 32B deals with contributory group general or blanket insurance. And Chapter 44, Section 67 refers to deferred compensation programs. So those, basically the law is saying those things have to be included or deemed part of the employment contract, but the state otherwise leaves it to cities or towns, and that the contract is subject to our charter. So the language in our charter, so-called, the Town Manager Act, is at Section 11, which is page 7 of our working copy that we're all dealing with.
Which section again?
It's Section 11. It begins on page 7 of my copy, anyway. And in it, we talked about changing Board of Selectmen to Select Board. We talked about my focus, or my, what's the word, with capitalization. But the real bugaboo for us was I had proposed deleting the last clause, which dealt with possible 3-month severance pay. And that's where we got hung up, not knowing, well, which would supersede it, this language or the contract, or is there a statute, a mass statute involved? So we're kind of back to the question, should this language stay or not? And kind of my quick thoughts in response to this Chapter 41, Section 108 of the Mass General Laws, and based on the recent town manager contract, a copy of which I shared with everybody last time. I have one with me, Mary Beth, if you'd like to look at it. It seems to me that I think it's probably okay to keep the language that's in there, that's currently in the Town Manager Act. So I just wanted to toss that out. This was something we deferred last time, and I thought we should get back to it now while it's fresh in our thoughts. Anybody? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was giving this some thought, and the way it's written, it seems mandatory that the town provide 3 months severance. But there could be a situation where that might be, like, not palatable, right? Like, if and you know, these are hypotheticals, but if the town manager did something so egregious that it was clearly warranted to being discharged, you know, criminal action, something, you know, just over the line, to guarantee someone 3 months severance in that situation seems like beyond beyond generous, right?
Well, I think, and Mary Beth, since you're looking at it, maybe you'll see it. There is language in this the most recent contract that I was able to get a copy of, that does say if it's a criminal action that this 3-month severance goes out the window.
But I see that as inconsistent with the statute. So, I mean, maybe we could fix it by saying, like, I don't know, that maybe have the statute read that it's, you know, that the select board may pay 3 months severance, and then the contract could be written the way it is now, that if it's,
In that case, should we just remove it and just leave it up to the contract to deal with it?
yeah, either way is probably fine with me.
Yeah,
And then have it be a term of negotiation in the contract.
right.
Well, again, the current language that I had proposed crossing out it has 2 parts. It says that, you know, when they remove, if they suspend the town manager, the town manager would have to be paid any unpaid balance of salary due
Yeah.
through that date. So that part definitely, I think, should stay in. That's my suggestion. But it's the second half.
Yeah.
Together with the salary for the next 3 months, and maybe that part to make it optional.
Yeah.
And maybe it could be, and at the discretion of the select board.
What does the corporate world do with severance? Is that part of the contract when you sign it? Is that how it works?
Not necessarily.
Not
No, necessarily.
There's such a broad spectrum, I think, in practice. I couldn't even pretend to tell you, oh, this is what happens, because it varies so much. It can depend on the company. Bigger companies might offer severance that's based on the number of years the employee's been there. It's so varied. Sometimes it's built into an employment contract, though I just tiny little practice. I don't see it built into employment contracts very often. But maybe the option of making at least that severance piece optional, because it might be important to have it in here, because it's unusual to pay, you know, an appropriation is made to pay a salary, right? And if you're going to pay a lump of it upon termination, it almost seems like the select board needs to have some language that would allow them to do that. I don't know if that's really an issue or not, but I think I'd rather see it in here as optional.
I like John's suggestion of having the may.
And I think I agree, Sally, that it would be important to have it so that there's no question that the select board has the authority to do it because it's laid out here, but just not have it be mandatory.
May.
Yeah.
I just want to say I agree, especially if because then you, like you said, you get into a question of if there was some sort of criminal action and it became to a question, that it becomes, which takes precedence, the act or the contract. And I think if the act is written more as if it's not required, that raises that concern. So I would agree.
Again, being ignorant of the corporate world completely, would an employee sign an agreement with something about severance or not so at all? Or would severance come up after they are released?
Probably in a non-disclosure document that you would sign upon being terminated.
I see, so it would be on that document, not necessarily the first document you sign as an
Right.
employer.
Well,
No,
this
this
town manager contract, and again, the contract is going to be whatever the select board negotiates with whoever the next town manager is. But that contract, by that I'm pointing to the one that Mary Beth is holding, which I passed out, which I distributed last time, it did include a severance provision. So in this case, the town of Danvers did include severance language in the town manager's contract in the past, at least in this one contract.
Sometimes I think employees might ask for it, and sometimes if the board or, corporation people might want to put it in there. Sometimes organizations, businesses, looking to go in a different direction with an employee will offer them a severance, and if they don't want that severance, then they'll say, well, then you're going to be fired, so either you could take the severance and sometimes severance is in lieu of collecting for some people too.
So,
So-
again, being a neophyte in that world, it seems like allowing the town to have as many options as possible on how they want to manage the severance makes sense, because there's so many different permutations of what it could be like. Okay. Thank you.
So just to clarify, if we were to make the change that John and I were both suggesting, looking at the language in the Top Manager Act currently, I think that last sentence could read, in the preliminary written resolution, said select board may suspend said town manager from duty, but shall in any case cause him or her or them to be forthwith, let me back up, shall in any case cause to be paid to him, her, them, forthwith any unpaid balance of the salary due at the time of such suspension, and then something like a semicolon, and furthermore, the select board may, at its discretion,
Cause to be paid.
thank you, cause to be paid the salary thereof for the next 3 calendar months through the end.
Yeah.
How about if we said up to the next 3 months, in case they decided to just give them 1 month's salary, or 2 months?
Does this also mean that this changes the wording that they would have to do, that the select board would have to do in the next contract? Not that that matters, they can do that, but it does say, the town manager is otherwise willing to perform, the town shall pay the 3 months' payment provided for in section 11. So it says in the contract that they shall pay, and we are changing it to may pay. So,
What you're reading from is the actual contract, so the select board could decide, okay, we are going to offer it, and so they put it in the contract that they shall.
Right.
We're giving them the option to either they shall do it or they may do it, it's up to them.
right, they just can't say shall, provided for in section 11, if we're changing section 11.
Sure they could, because section 11, if it changes the way we're discussing, gives them the option to offer that.
Okay. Sure.
So it falls within what the language allows for. Or they could decide to keep it, that they'll make the decision at the time of separation instead of building it into the contract like they did in that one. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's contradictory.
Okay, good, that's what it was.
Any further discussion? Do I hear a motion?
What are we voting on at this point?
Well, this would be
We,
to accept section 11 as amended per the version we just read.
so is there any,
With
is
the
there any
option.
appetite to use the word
I'm
up to
sorry.
3 months?
I'm sorry, that's right. That was, sorry, Mike. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think give them flexibility.
So up to 3 months. Would you like me to read the change back one more time? Would that be helpful?
Yes.
So the last sentence of section 11, what we're contemplating here, is that it could be changed to read as follows. In the preliminary written resolution, said select board may suspend said town manager from duty, but shall, in any case, cause to be paid to him, her, them, forthwith, any unpaid balance of the salary due at the time of such suspension, semicolon. Furthermore, the Select Board may, at its discretion, cause to be paid the salary thereof for up to the next 3 calendar months following the filing of the preliminary resolution.
Doesn't flow off the tongue, but it works.
It's a mouthful.
Pardon me?
I said, it doesn't flow off the tongue, but it works. It'll never be read aloud, though, so that's okay.
I would move to accept the language as discussed and edited tonight.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So the next section that we deferred on were sections 23 and 24. And if I'm missing anything, please
I think
let me
we
know.
deferred on 17.
Is that the municipal light board?
I had that, too.
Yeah.
You're right. Thank you. Which appears at page 15. So in the packet I handed out tonight, I included a few things. We were all a little uncertain about the municipal light board and what's that all about and so on and so forth. So I looked at the annual town report, which we got a couple months ago here, and the electrical light board is mentioned on page 14 of that annual report, so I made a copy of that page. But I also made a copy from the Water and Sewer Division for the Water and Sewer Commission, which seems to me, they seem very similar. So I just thought I'd bring that one in just for example. And then I also went to the town's website and pulled up language that I found on the Municipal Light Board and the Water and Sewer Commission. Now, we approved the Water and Sewer Commission language already, so I don't want to confuse the issues, but because they had similar language. According to the town's webpage, the Municipal Light Board, the overview that's offered is that the Danvers Municipal Light Board provides a forum for Danvers residential and business customers and the Danvers Electric Division regarding bills or any other matters relating to the electric division. The Municipal Light Board advises the town manager and/or the Director of Public Works on matters pertaining to the electric division. We had a lot of the stomach bug among my family members this past week, and so I haven't been able to delve further than that. But this is the information I was able to pull together for tonight's meeting, and I don't know if it's sufficient to reassure the committee about the questions they had about the language here in section 17.
Interestingly, the overview is the exact same as it is for the Water and Sewer Commission, which we've already approved. Find that interesting.
But maybe members of the committee were more comfortable with the way the Water and Sewer Commission works. That you need those divisions to be led by somebody with expertise in these areas. The Water and Sewer Commission, at least their budget process, we're exposed to it more as town meeting members. Over the years, we've approved funding for things that they're doing. They're part and parcel of the regular budget process. The electric division feels like it's more mysterious, only because, for one thing, it's electricity, but for another, they're on a different calendar cycle, and there's federal stuff wrapped into their budget. So the commission that advises relative to the electric division just seemed more remote, I think. But I think they do a very similar function. It's like, they meet regularly, and it's a forum where customers, residential and commercial, can come and raise questions and concerns and keep up to date with what's going on in the electric division.
Sally, I know at the last meeting, I had kind of suggested maybe more accepting it as is, or not making any changes, knowing that 30 years ago that was a big issue. And seeing now that it is very similar to the Water and Sewer Division, both in how they describe themselves in the packet and as it is in the act, I would think that I would recommend accepting it as it was, or I didn't see any need to make any changes to it. That would be my view.
Now, I had, again, in the working copy where I kind of went through with just making suggested changes, I did my usual capitalization thing and changing Board of Selectmen to Select Board. Actually, it doesn't even appear in this section. So I have suggested a change, but it's all typographical. But I mean, I agree with you, Dan. I think it works fine now, the way it is.
I remember when Mike Landers came, and I don't know if he spoke to us in person or if it was via email, but I do recall him specifically saying that the light board works well, things are functioning well, and so, I mean, if the board is sort of saying things are functioning well, it's a good sign too, so I would disagree with Dan that I don't really see any need to change it.
Okay.
At the risk of sounding like a stupid question is being asked, is there any reason why one is called a board and one is called a commission?
I think they were trying to keep the same number of syllables. I have no idea.
I mean, the commission might be maybe it's a state or a
Could be.
regulatory, that you have to have so many commissioners for that. That's kind of what I think that might be.
Excuse me. I honestly, I'm trying to remember what exactly was the issue that caused us to defer this? Like, what was it that we were thinking of changing?
Well, I remember there being a discussion over municipal light board. I think there was some,
Like the name? That was the
that
extent
was,
of it.
if I remember
Okay.
correctly, it was literally, we were talking about light versus electric, I think.
Yes,
Okay.
I know, I remember bringing that up and was just saying like, does this make sense that it's called the municipal light board, and should it just be called the municipal electric board to actually have it make sense with 2025? I don't know why it was ever called the light board, but it's not really about lights. It's about electricity, which is so much bigger at this point than lights, which maybe originally that was the main function. It was like, you can have a light on in your house, it's the light board, but
Well, I mean, like historically, they probably put street lights up before they put electricity in people's houses.
Right.
It's
So-
probably an artifact of history.
right, so just to update it, I just brought up of like,
Okay,
do
so
we
that-
change this name to, but I don't know that that's up to us to change their name.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard a clamoring for a name change, so I'm glad.
I find it kind of
Go ahead, Dan.
charming.
I sort of assume municipal light board was probably the way it was written in some state law, because I know that like a 114 in Middleton, their sign still says electric light department, Peabody's the municipal light plant. I think the side of our building still says electric light department, even though the word light has kind of disappeared from the town report. I think that's what it says in stone. So I don't know, I just kind of think if everyone else is doing that, probably don't want to be the first one to switch. If the law might say a town needs a municipal light board, because that sounds like a really like canned sort of phrase.
I think that's why this came up, is we weren't sure if this was a state thing that it had to be called the light board. So if we just keep it, we just keep it. It's fine.
All right,
Real
can
dog
I make a
inside.
motion to accept the language as, excuse me, as edited by Sally?
I'll second.
That was you, Noah.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So the other section that we deferred was 24. And again, let me know if I've missed something. So we renumbered something towards the end, so let me make sure I'm talking about the right thing. It appears on page 20 of our working copy of the Town Manager Act. It's been renumbered to section 24. It deals with the Board of Commissioners of Trust Funds. So again, I tried to do a little digging, and in the handout that I brought today with pages copied from the annual town report, page 46 of that report includes a list of all of the trust funds. And it's tiny little print, but it's primarily money that's been donated through the school department. I did receive an email from Ann Freitas this afternoon as well, who told me that she spoke with our acting town manager, Rodney, and with Jill Summit, the treasurer collector. And that Jill, according to the email that Ann sent me, Jill is the person authorized to dispense funds from the various trusts, most of which are school scholarships, and recipients are recommended by the school department. She goes on to say that the funds are managed by Bartholomew and Company, an investment management company. So Ann said that she knew it was here on page 46 of the annual report, the list of trust funds. But she says there could well be other locations. She wasn't aware. But she also said that the acting town manager and the treasurer collector and Ann are not aware that a board of commissioners of trust funds has functioned as a 3-member entity for many years, and that none of them could remember any time that it has been met, that it has met, or that it's ever even been referenced. So I began first by just thinking, okay, I'll get at least the list of the trust funds that we're aware of. And I found a statute, which it's referenced in the Town Manager Act, so I didn't just find it. It was referenced in the Act. It's Mass General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 53, which I included in the handouts for tonight. And this section of the Mass General Laws states that town auditors shall at least once every year, and so much oftener as they deem necessary, audit the accounts of the trustees of any property, the principal or income of which, in whole or in part, was bequeathed or given in trust for public uses for the benefit of the town or any part thereof, or for the benefit of the inhabitants of the town or of any part thereof, and examine and estimate the funds, securities, and evidences of properties held by such trustees. Said trustees shall give auditors free access to their accounts, funds, securities, and evidences of property, and any such trustee refusing to exhibit the same shall be punished by a fine of not less than $50, nor more than $200. Town auditors shall include in their annual reports a report of such auditing and investigation, and if they discover any fraud or irregularity, they shall immediately report the same to the mayor and city treasurer, or to the selectman and town treasurer. They shall, at least once in each year, verify the cash balance of such trustees by actual count of the cash and by reconciliation of bank balances, and shall insert in their annual report their certificate under oath of the facts so found, provided, however, that they need not so verify the cash balance by actual count of the cash if the trustee is a banking association, or trust company. So the funds are managed by an investment management company. The treasurer collector is the one authorized to dispense funds from it. The total of the funds as of the end of June of 2024 was $361,000. And we have a section in our Town Manager Act that says the town manager shall appoint a board of commissioners of trust funds, but one has not been appointed apparently in many, many years. So what do we do with that?
It's been audited?
Oh, yes, it's part of the audit. Yeah.
Even though there's not trustees, it still has been audited?
Yes.
Okay.
That's my understanding. It's part of the annual audit for the town.
Isn't that 312,000 just for the, aren't they all different subtotals? Yeah.
This is school, hospitals.
Yeah.
I don't even understand what the hospital trusts are for, though. We don't have a hospital in town anymore.
Right.
I know, that's what I was wondering, like.
Or we don't have we have a hospital in town, but not a Danvers Town Hospital.
Right,
Well,
so what happened?
We did, I think, the Hunt Memorial Hospital, that's probably where
That was a
these
town
funds are
hospital.
from.
Okay.
At one point, because the town ran that
Right.
hospital. So those could just be staying there. Like,
Yeah,
they
that was
just
like
might not.
go anywhere.
The hospital closed up. I don't know, like, if there was a board that continued to tidy up all of this, not sure. I do know that the school department, with the scholarships and all, that again, students apply for those scholarships. All seniors are allotted that opportunity at the end, in their senior year to apply. The schools go through the applications, and then there's a criteria based on need and all of that. And then they determine who will receive those scholarships. And I think each year they dispense it based on probably interest or what's available or whatever the scholarship states how much would be dispersed.
So, thanks very much for pointing out, I read just the bottom of the page total, and there are subtotals within this page, so let me restate. The balance in the school-related trust funds comes to $4.5 million, just over. For the town of Danvers trust funds, it comes to $108,000. The hospital sub-fund comes to $410,000, almost $411,000, and then miscellaneous is the $361,000 that I mentioned a few minutes ago. So I mean, it's substantial. I mean, one thought I had, just to toss it out there, is that we could vote to leave it in, updated, with the typos and stuff, and point out it's significant amounts of funds, and that the town manager should in fact appoint a group, a commission of 3, just to keep track, because maybe the question of the funds that are still called hospital funds, maybe something should be happening with them that's not happening. I think the school department funds I think that's an active exercise. But on the other hand, it might be sufficient that right now the funds are being managed by a professional management company, and we don't need to be concerned. I guess I'm not so concerned about the funds themselves, and that they're growing as best, as they can, is that are they being put put to the use for which they were first created, and for that, should we have a board pursuant to this section of the Town Manager Act?
I think there should be a board. There should be somebody paying attention to this.
Yeah, I don't think.
If I'm reading this right, and possibly, funds that were active, in other words, the withdrawals, is that correct? We're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So of all the funds, the activity was very small.
I'm not sure what you're counting.
Am I reading
Under
it
the
correctly?
withdrawal column.
I see.
So therefore, the activity of the funds is very limited compared to the number of funds. It's basically, the funds are sitting and they're accruing whatever interests are accruing. So there isn't a lot of, there's oversight, but there's not a lot of management of those. Is that a fair assumption of what I'm looking at
Well,
on this?
I don't know that that's necessarily the case, because some of them have very low dollar amounts, so you can't really give a scholarship for $5. So that's just going to sit there until, I don't know, until it either goes away or it accrues enough money to make it worth. But I think there is management. We have a management company looking at these
Okay.
things.
So
and-
management maybe isn't quite the right word, but execution of them, or use of them, or
Right.
something. I don't know.
So there's obviously a financial institution that is watching the investment portion, but they're not, their job is not to distribute or to make sure that anything is accurate that's being done here. Like, so who's withdrawing, like, who has the right for withdrawing if there's no board?
Well, the treasurer collector.
And we don't know, yeah, but,
If I just look at them, all those withdrawals are in the school section, so I'm assuming
so
that those
for
withdrawals were probably
scholarships or-
scholarships that
right.
were given to kids who graduated possibly in whatever, 20,
But again,
23,
going-
24.
yeah.
So that must be a regular thing that happens with those scholarships, but other than that,
Right.
there isn't any
There's-
activity.
There's one at the very bottom. I don't know what, it's under miscellaneous. At the very bottom, it says 500.
Pardon?
At the very bottom, it
it's
says.
negative, is it negative 500?
Withdrawal.
No, it's a withdrawal of 500, but it doesn't say from what fund. It just says 500.
Miscellaneous subtotal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there should be a board,
Yes, without question.
yeah.
I would agree too, and I would just, just putting on my cap of someone who works in fundraising, thinking of some of the funds, like each fund, I assume the way it's created has will have specific uses and how that money can be spent. So again, I think having some oversight is good, but again, looking at these hospital funds, it might be worth having someone go through and say, what were that's a significant amount of money. And it'd be interesting to know, I feel like someone should be looking at, is that money being spent? And if it's not being spent, what are the different ways the town could use it? So I think, I think in addition to keeping the section I like your idea of including a recommendation that a board actually be convened, exists. It's a significant enough amount of money that I think a board is warranted.
And have terms and, term limits maybe and things like that. And would the board be I'm sure, appointed by the town manager, right? It was?
That's what this section of the Town Manager Act
Yeah,
provides.
right.
Because you would want someone with some financial experience or,
If, going back to, is the activity that seems to be going on with these funds, could that be handled by someone else rather than a board? I mean, could the accountant oversee this? I mean, is there someone else that already is in a financial position rather than create another board?
Well, the treasurer collector is the person authorized to dispense the funds, which is as it should be, the treasurer collector of the town. And the funds are part of the town audit, so I'm not sure if I'm catching the question properly, John, but there is somebody with authority and power by law, by town charter, to actually dispense funds. The real question is there oversight in terms of the purpose of the funds, and could they be used more.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Or
that
grow more.
the collector treasurer would be bound by whatever the trust, the terms of the trust.
Right.
So the disbursement couldn't be like, well, this is supposed to be a scholarship, but I'm going to use it to paint the building, right? But I guess more of an affirmative, I think I would see the role of a board would be more of an affirmative, hey, we've got all these things that aren't doing anything, ask the question why, and not to say like go beyond what the scope of the trust is, but like maybe there's some purpose within the trust that we aren't thinking about. So I think there is like an affirmative role beyond administering and cutting checks, and I mean that wouldn't be the role of a board.
Yeah, so I was going to say, with the tax collector who disperses the funds, are they not considered a trustee of the funds?
According to the email that I got, the management company is, I thought was the trustee, but let me just reread to make sure I caught that correctly. So I don't know the answer to that.
It doesn't say that there is a trustee.
Right.
Sally, just one other point. So last year, the Historic Preservation Study Committee had tried to look into some of these that we thought could be used for like town property historic preservation uses, like the High Street Cemetery or items like that. And when we had reached out to Town Hall, we were kind of surprised that we were told that there were some of them that town staff did not know its allowable uses. And so I definitely think there should be a board to sort of like look into this, or even just by accounting, listing 11 combined. Okay. Like, I know that the town has a
6
trust
combined,
fund for
yeah.
taking care of the cemetery at the Rebecca Nurse House. I don't know, is that 11 combined or 6 combined? How much money is in it? It doesn't actually tell you that one. And maybe having 3 people overseeing it could also sort of set it straight and kind of get some more clarity.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
So, what's your pleasure,
Could
John?
I move to accept the section 24 as edited by Sally?
Do we have a second?
Second. Oh, okay. Nova, go ahead.
Any further discussion?
I'm still confused on it, so I don't know where I stand on the issue, so someone could, do you need, I see your point, makes sense. Do we need 3 people to do this?
Yeah. You definitely need an odd number, but
Because
a
I
3-person
guess-
board is,
If I may share, just from a school point of view, all right? I would imagine, if not so, then that all of these scholarships would be advertised to the seniors or juniors or whomever at Danvers High School. I mean, can we assume that, yes?
Yes,
Okay.
and seniors.
So the question then becomes that all of those have been presented to the kids, and for whatever reason, they either didn't apply or they didn't qualify. So to have a board basically do, from what I'm looking at, a majority of the work that is already being done, should be being done by the schools as far as advertising the scholarships, then do we need a board to take care of the other ones for the hospital and the town of Danvers? I mean, I'll be curious to see what the hospital ones, if anybody's in knowledge about those, because I know that was part of the old hospitals in Danvers. So I guess what I'm saying in the short of it is that the vast majority of it I see being in the realm of the educators at the high school, whoever dispenses that information, and that should be done every single year. There should be some sort of pamphlet that goes out to all the kids, and you can all apply So why would you need someone to manage that?
What if I could respond, what if, for one reason or another, the schools didn't do it? A board that oversees trusts could say, hey, this isn't happening, let's get ourselves in order so that.
Anytime you have significant money, there should be a board overseeing the whole thing.
I understand that point, but my response to that would be, making the students aware of this money that's available is the responsibility of the people who are in education at the high school. There should be a place every single year that these are advertised. Now, if that's not happening, then I don't know if us doing something with the Town Manager Act is really going to accomplish, maybe it'll accomplish something, but does that mean that somebody is not advertising them as they should be? Or does it mean that
I think
people are really not applying?
I think you're picking out that one section. It's really, that is the school is only part and parcel of that whole, all of the trusts. In my mind, it's the board is overseeing the trusts, just very much like what the trustees of the library oversee the trust fund of the library. So that's 9 board members overseeing that, right? So this is some significant money that has sort of just been, I don't want to say neglected, but it is neglected, because who knows what could be being done with that if you have the right people in place.
Well, it's not a question of what's being done with it, because it's part of the audit all the time.
No, I'm
So
not
it's-
saying,
I just don't want there to be kind of a nefarious implication
no, I'm
that
saying.
money is being.
No, I'm saying it could be grown.
Yes.
So if it's
Or
overseen.
could be used.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it's being spent wrong, because it's not being spent at all, except for so there could be a lot of things that could be done with it for the better, let me put it that way, if you have the right people overseeing.
Mary Beth, you've been trying to jump into.
Yeah, so I think when we're talking about trustees, commissioners, a board of commissioners that oversee this, is just making sure that, not to advertise, because like you said, the schools do that. Every year, students and any Danvers seniors can go to Fenwick, Danvers, St. John's Prep. They are made, these scholarships are advertised, made available, they apply, and they are paid out. And there are restrictions as to who gets it, there are guidelines, requirements set forth. But I think the commissioners would just make sure that, to Natalie's point, that things are going the way they're supposed to be going. It's invested, that people are keeping track of it. What is all this other trust that hasn't been spent? And what doing the investigative work of, because at some point, people gave money to the hospital in memory of or in name of these folks. Hospital closed down, and the town kind of looks like they were just left there. Because at a certain point, people that were part of that and have gone away. So this board of commissioners to oversee it is just overseeing it. It's not saying they have to advertise it, but maybe they meet with the investment companies yearly to make sure it's invested properly, it's getting the right amount of interest, or however it's gone. To Natalie's point, same thing. It's just making sure it's running the way it's supposed to be running. Without,
Sorry.
getting involved with, all right, who's winning this scholarship and this and that. No, the schools are handling that.
Right.
But the trusts,
And I don't want to leave an impression that the money isn't being properly handled by the management company that's handling it. I mean, and it's part of the audit, so I'm sure that it's being invested in properly, all that kind of stuff. And people can disagree, could you get an extra point, percentage point if you put it in this fund as opposed to that fund? So that's the separate question, but I don't want to give the impression, or any of you to have the impression, that there's a concern about that the money hasn't been properly handled. That's not the question. To me, if you notice on this page 46 of the annual town report, one of the columns is non-expendable, and people will put language in a trust or sometimes in a will that says, I want this money to go for kids that are taking French. Well, maybe there aren't very many kids taking French this year, So maybe that money's not expendable because nobody fits the criteria for that trust fund. Or another might say, I'm giving money in this category of Town of Danvers to, for trees to be planted at Endicott Park, or some such thing, or in a park that doesn't exist anymore, for instance. So it's almost like the commissioners could take a look, if there are trust documents, and there may not be, to see, well, what was the intent when this fund was first set up? Can we still meet that intent or not? I know that oftentimes, if you ever go to like a charitable site, and they say, if you want to donate money through your will or trust, this is the language we suggest, and almost always, it'll say at the end, and if, say it's the trustees of reservations, and if the trustees, or at the trustees' discretion, at the best discretion of the trustees of where they need the money. So sometimes there's that ending language that allows the entity to use it as they see fit. But sometimes funds are given with very specific, maybe really narrow provisions. And so one thing that the commissioners could do is look into that issue and see, okay, well, maybe this money can't be used because whatever it was first set up for, it doesn't even exist anymore. So what can we do instead? Or, okay, we can't use this, we'll set it aside. Let's look at the next one. So there's, again, I don't want to give the impression
No,
that we
we-
think the money is like somehow being absconded with or being,
I don't have that impression. My thing is, it's not being maybe utilized in the way that it could best be utilized, because because, I mean, a full-time employee at Town Hall, her job is not to be scrutinizing those trusts. It's to spend it as she gets a request, but it's not to do what you just said, which was my point of overseeing and using it in the best way possible.
I'm just curious if there's a specific reason why you're hesitant for this commission in particular.
Why?
Yeah.
I just see the relative, and I completely see the point of view that, you all
Yeah,
are
no,
saying, yeah.
I'm
I
just
guess
curious.
I'm looking at the division of work that needs to be done. And I'm really looking at not the school total. That's a whole different thing in my mind. That's a whole different thing. I'm looking at everything below that, and maybe what you're all saying to me, which makes sense, would be that creating a board that would publicize, track down, et cetera, find out the qualifications for each of these trust funds. I mean, I can see the value of that. I just don't see that being a whole lot of work. I guess that's my point.
maybe not.
Well, and that's up to the people who get appointed, whether they want to take on that role or not, right? So,
I guess what you're saying is no harm in making
right,
people
there's
put them
somebody,
there and
there's
let
somebody
them-
out there
let
that
them
would.
do whatever they.
Yeah, that would find this a good challenge.
And there's supposed to be one.
Yeah, and there was supposed to be one to begin with.
I was going to say, if a better question might be, why isn't there a board when the Town Manager Act requires it?
And maybe the answer is that there was one at one point, and they finished the work that was needed, and there wasn't a need to reappoint. But maybe now there is time, maybe now is the time to do it.
Yeah,
Dan?
And
absolutely.
I would say, just looking at all the numbers on the sheet, I mean, we do have, in theory, $5 million that is kind of the only money in town that can be spent without town meeting's approval. Mm-hmm. So you probably want an oversight board of that, because that is kind of a unique setup where it doesn't go through the regular process.
Yeah, to me, I'm shocked. Like that bothers me, that there's not, that this has gone by the wayside.
I think to John's point, I think framing it as an affirmative, it's oversight, so with the intention that the money is being used most effectively, and if it's not being used, can we find a way to use it? So that's sort of how I view it as, it's not a negative, it's more an affirmative, and this board could sort of hopefully, make the best use of some of these funds if they're not being utilized.
And I think that also includes the school ones, like, I don't know if they're all actually being used the way they're supposed to be used. I mean, I assume so, but
It's
don't
any of
know.
any trust should be should have somebody overseeing it.
Right.
So we've got what, a motion and a second?
A motion to accept with the edits that appear in our working copy from John Almeida, Nova, seconded. Is there further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay, one thing I neglected to say at the start, I just wanted to toss in, we've just tonight approved the minutes of our last meeting, of our February 5th meeting. As our minutes approved, as we approve them, are now on the town's website, along with each agenda is always posted, and now our minutes as approved by us are being posted as well. They're on the town website under agendas and minutes, and you can scroll down to our committee, and our minutes are now posted,
Public record.
public record. Okay, so, next, I think those are the only ones that we had deferred, so I think our next section to discuss is Section 25, which I think might be Mike's favorite section about the tree warden. I had just my usual stuff, gotten the capitalizations of things, and that's all I did for a change. Feel free, we're a public meeting if you'd like to join us. Any discussion?
I'll move to accept Section 25 with the,
I do have a question. Sorry. Does anybody know who this is and what they actually do?
I believe
Mary Beth, do you know?
at every annual town meeting, a tree warden is appointed. I couldn't tell you who it is.
Yeah,
Bill Clark, maybe?
No, this is one that's like a real town official, with like the,
This isn't the weigher of coal.
no, that's a
Right.
different thing. Yeah,
Right,
this
right.
is like a real,
I think it's Travis Reardon, who is the Director of Forestry.
yeah,
So
it's a real role
Yeah.
in the town.
they determine if trees need to be removed or planted based upon safety,
And there's all kinds of like trees within the town's right-of-ways, long roads. It's an important function in the town.
Yeah.
But it is an actual, like, tree arborist or
Yes,
something.
yeah.
It's not an appointed, like, I don't know,
No.
that guy can do
I mean,
it.
I
do
guess it
believe
could
it.
be any, but yeah.
Could be, but I do believe it's Travis Reardon, or at least that might be who we voted on, but he is
Does say suitably
in charge of forestry division for the town.
And this is an example from Wenham, but like, for example, when they were doing all the tree removal on Cherry Street last year, like the tree warden had to do a public notice, and so that's sort of what they would manage, that sort of process of, working with the power company. If trees need to be removed for, they would manage all that.
So, John, did you want to restate your motion?
The motion would be to accept Section 25 as the changes you've made.
Thank you.
I'll second.
No seconds, thank you.
I also like the tree warden. This is also my favorite section. I like the tree warden. I think it's a cool position.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next is Section 26, which states the town manager shall appoint an attorney or a law firm to act as town counsel for a term not to exceed 3 years. And all I did was my usually obsessive capitalization provisions. Any discussion?
I have a question, Sally, if I may.
Sure.
The thing that popped in my mind is the town manager assigns that. Is there any value or a perspective on the select board making that particular designation?
Oh, it's subject to ratification by the select board.
Pardon?
It's subject to ratification by the select board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can the same law firm be appointed for consecutive 3-year terms?
Yes, I believe the answer is yes, it can.
Sally, I see one selectman remains in the
What's that?
fourth line.
Yep, I got it, yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we accept as written with the changes.
I'll second it.
Who was that, you, Mike? Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Next would be section 27, which states, as we've discussed before in our meetings, that the town manager shall be the chief fiscal officer of the town, and warrants for payment of town funds prepared by the town accountant in accordance with the provisions of section 56 of chapter 41 of the general laws shall be submitted to said town manager. The approval of such warrant by said town manager shall be sufficient authority to authorize payment by the town treasurer, but the select board shall approve all warrants in the event of the absence of said town manager or a vacancy in the office of town manager. I, again, did my typical capitalization and change from Board of Selectmen to Select Board, but left the rest of it as is. Any discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, we accept section 27 as written,
I'll second that.
Do you mean with the,
with the capitalization corrections.
I'll second that motion.
thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Section 28. Whenever any payroll bill or other claim against the town is presented to the town manager, said town manager shall, if the same seems to be of doubtful validity, excessive in amount, or otherwise contrary to the interests of the town, refer it to the select board, who shall immediately investigate the facts and determine what, if any, payment should be made. Pending such investigation and determination by said select board, payment shall be withheld. Do we have any discussion? I did my typical capitalization, changing Board of Selectmen to Select Board. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept section 28 with Sally's changes.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So, section 29, every officer shall pay into the treasury of the town all amounts received on behalf of the town, and shall make a true return thereof to the town accountant, stating the amounts upon which such amounts were received. I wonder if that's supposed to be, it should say, stating the accounts upon which such amounts were received. I wonder if that's a typo.
That reads better.
Because usually you'd be getting a payment, like, let's say somebody, I don't think cash payments are really made all that much anymore, but if somebody went to the building department to get a building permit, and they paid the person in the building department, there's usually some kind of a bill or an invoice or a receipt. That would be the account on which it was paid. And then the building department has to track that over to the finance people to get it properly handled. Again, I think payments now, the system has been changed over the years to make it more streamlined and centralized, so I don't know if it even happens that way anymore. But this is important because it makes it clear that any money that comes into the town has to be handled by the town accountant. Is there any discussion?
Motion to accept section 29?
Is that as
Yes.
modified?
I'll second.
Does the modification include the word accounts?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Section 30, the aggregate annual compensation of each town employee appointed by the town manager shall be limited to the amount established in accordance with the provisions of this act, and all fees received in accordance with the provisions of any general or special law shall be paid to the treasury of the town. Again, it's to make it clear that, the town manager hires and sets compensation, but it all has to be within the normal financial proceedings of the town. For instance, has to be in the budget, and it has to be paid in accordance with the general procedures used for payments out from the town. Any discussion? Is there a motion?
I move to accept the language as edited by Sally here, section 30.
Just want to remind people to try to talk into the mics. I'm not sure the one in front of Dan is really working, but it's hard for people to hear us, I've been told. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Section 31. All officers, boards, and committee members and employees, whether elected or appointed, shall comply with the provisions of Chapter 268 of the general laws. That's the conflict of interest law that we all had to review when we started our work.
I'll make a motion, we accept section 31 as written.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Section 32, on or before March 1st of each year, the town manager shall submit to the select board a careful, detailed estimate in writing of the probable expenditures of the town government for the ensuing year, stating the amount required to meet the interest and maturing bonds and notes or other outstanding indebtedness of the town, and showing specifically the amount necessary to be provided for each fund and department, together with a statement of the expenditures of the town for the same purposes in the 2 preceding years, and an estimate of the expenditure for the current year. Said town manager shall also submit to the select board a statement showing all revenues received by the town in the preceding fiscal year, and an estimate of the amount of income from all sources of revenue exclusive of taxes on property in the ensuing year. Said town manager shall report to the select board the probable amount required to be levied and raised by taxation to defray all expenses and liabilities of the town, together with an estimate of the tax rate necessary to raise such amount. For purpose of enabling said town manager to make up the annual estimate of expenditures, all boards, officers, and committees of the town shall, upon said town manager's written request, furnish all information in their possession and submit to said town manager a detailed written estimate of the appropriations required for the efficient and proper conduct of their respective departments during the next fiscal year. Again, I did my obsessive capitalizations and changed, I added reference to the select board in the text as well when I felt it wasn't really clear who the town manager was giving these reports to. And I can say it's consistent with the work that I did on the FinCom. Each budget we got was in the springtime. Each department played a role in creating the budget. The town manager kind of pulled people together to develop their budgets. And we always had the upcoming fiscal year and the 2 years before that, before us. So we made it very efficient to confirm year-to-year changes. So.
I have a question, if I may, Sally. The budget goes to the select board, correct?
Yes.
And then tell me, what does the FinCom then do? What is their role in that, please?
Sure. So the town manager with the administrative staff and department heads, they create a budget each year. They present it to the select board in March, I believe. The select board reviews it, tends to have several meetings with the department heads and so on and so forth. They do a pretty thorough review. Sometimes they'll take a weekend to do it, pretty much nonstop, or long days. And then it comes to the finance committee, which is kind of the third set of eyes on the budget. And when I was on the finance committee, generally would set up our agenda showing which departments we were going to hear from each night. And departments like the police department, the fire department, DPW would come in and make a presentation of what was in their budget and why, and explaining a little bit about what their goals were and why they were making the requests they were making. The finance committee, each member, we go up and down asking questions till we were done with our questions, and then open it up to other questions by any citizens attending. So it was a pretty thorough process, I would say. It would generally take maybe 5 or 6 weeks.
If there were some concerns on the FinCom that they did not agree with or whatever, would they then send it back to the select board?
That was one of our options, yep. Or the town manager could withdraw with that department and revise the budget. I'm not exactly sure what that step would be, but yes, the finance committee has the authority and responsibility to say no if there's a problem.
Thank you.
I have one question regarding the date that's imposed. We mentioned it, or the act at the beginning references the March 1st deadline for the town manager. I'm wondering if it's worth imposing some sort of a reference to that date further on. For example, the third line from the end of the, or actually the fifth line from the end of the act says, "For the purpose of enabling said town manager to make up the annual estimate of expenditures," perhaps we should insert there by the date imposed on him? Or at the end, saying that written estimate of the appropriations required for the efficient and proper conduct of the respective departments during the next fiscal year. Again, referencing the deadline that is imposed on the town manager. So there has to be some deadline imposed on these departments to get the information to the town manager.
Well, again, in my observation on the finance committee, the town manager, the departments all had deadlines to get their budgets to the town manager's office. So the town manager traditionally, I was on that board for 20, 22 years. Every year, they had a whole schedule set out of which departments were going to be meeting with the town manager to do their budgets. And it's a very
Methodical.
it is a very thoughtful, very intense process, and I think it's enough to set the date by which the town manager has to have it done.
Okay.
And from there, they back up. I'm afraid if we try to manage that, it could be more micromanagement that could actually add pressure to a really already pretty charged process.
Okay. Just a thought. Thank you.
Does anyone know why let's see, said town manager shall also submit to the select board a statement showing all revenues received by the town in the preceding fiscal year and an estimate of the amount of income from all sources of revenue exclusive of taxes on property? Any reason why?
Well,
I was going to say, because what we're talking about is what's going to happen next year. It's in the ensuing year. So we've got all this other revenue, and then we have to figure out how much are we going to need to charge in property taxes.
I know, but there's the town manager also has to estimate, like, how much amount of income from all other sources. So that's also an estimate. So you would think that the property taxes would also be like an estimate, because it's probably not going to go down. So you would think that, like, it
Well, I
doesn't
think
matter.
the
I
other
just
ones
was
maybe
curious.
aren't as flexible. Like, you might not, like, they always have the option of raising the property taxes, right?
Right.
The other ones maybe aren't as flexible in terms of, like, it's going to be the same, the prediction is going to be more accurate, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to change year to year as much, maybe?
I think the tax base is levied, and it's anticipated what it's going to be, but things like hotel taxes and, building permits and so forth is an unknown entity.
well, the select board, the town has to set what the tax rate is going to be. The other sources of income are, for instance, funding from the state, for instance, or the grant monies that are coming. The town doesn't have any control over how those figures are set, but once it sets up its budget, it then has to figure out, okay, what's the tax levy going to be? And in fact, there are limits to it because of Prop 2.5.
Yeah.
So the budget is built based on the things that we know that are outside of the town's control, and then it all balances up at the end by setting the town tax levy. So in fact, that's why it's set up that way, because first we figure out, okay, this is what we think our budget's going to be, we've got this money coming in, which means we have to raise this much. And that much that's being raised is subject to or limited by the provisions of Prop 2.5. So I think that's why it's set up that way,
Okay.
just because of the way the budget process works.
Yeah.
But it's a very good question.
It's a question. Anyway.
I'll make a motion, we accept section 32 as written with the typographical changes that Sally loves.
I'm going to
second that
second that.
motion.
Oh, Johnson.
I got you, you did this one. Woo. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Section 33, the Select Board shall consider the tentative budget submitted by Town Manager and make such recommendations relative thereto as they deem expedient and proper in the interests of the town. On or before April 1 of each year, said Select Board shall transmit a copy of the budget together with its recommendations relative thereto to each member of the Finance Committee. Any discussion?
This isn't a major thing. This isn't a major thing, but the description tentative budget kind of rubs me a little odd. Maybe proposed budget? It just strikes me as a weird phrasing.
I was just looking to see if it's referred to, how it's referred to in the prior section.
Yeah, and I couldn't see anything.
So the word estimate appears a few times in section 32. Probable amount is referred to.
Sally, does it not become the proposed budget until the selectmen have their vote, and then it is proposed? Is it kind of
Maybe
even a
that's
step
why-
before
yeah, maybe that's why they
proposed,
don't
when
use
it's
that
just still within the office and not actually been endorsed by the select board?
I don't know.
Like
the
it's
answer to that.
tentative until it's agreed upon, and then it becomes proposed, the proposed budget.
Select Board proposes it to the Finance Committee, sort of? Okay.
Or does the Finance Committee propose it to town meeting?
Town meeting.
But I also think tentative could mean also, this is tentative based upon what the state's gonna approve, because that's not always approved prior to town meeting.
right.
So even though town meeting approves a budget, that budget could change based upon town meetings, the state's funding to the cities and towns. So you could interpret it that way, potentially,
It's always tentative.
and sorta.
Is there ever any budget at all?
Is the budget a thing? Yeah, again, not a big deal. I don't want to hold up.
Make the motion, John, go ahead.
All right. Any further discussion, or are we good? Could I move to accept the section 33 as edited by Sally?
Second?
Thanks, John. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So 34, section 34, there shall be a finance committee to consist of 9 persons who shall not be town meeting members, to be appointed by the moderator at the first annual town meeting held after the effective date of this act, who shall hold office 3 until the expiration of 3 years, 3 until the expiration of 2 years, and 3 until the expiration of 1 year from said annual town meeting. and thereafter, within 30 days after each annual town meeting, 3 members of said committee shall be appointed by the moderator to serve for 3-year terms. Before entering upon the duties of the office, Finance Committee members shall be sworn to the faithful and impartial performance thereof by the town clerk or justice of the peace.
Sally,
yes.
does are there any criteria for is it the criteria for the FinCom, is that strictly up to the criteria established by the moderator, whoever that person may be? Is that
Yes.
correct?
The town moderator is the person who chooses, yep.
Okay. Then I'll just throw this out. I did think about this, and I don't know if I'm not saying I'm advocating for it, but depending on who the moderator is and how important you've explained the FinCom role is in the whole budget, would it make some sense, and I don't know, I'm just throwing this out, that the FinCom, who are the elected officials of the town, would choose the people who are on the FinCom?
Do you mean the select board?
On
Do you mean the-
Finance Committee, the FinCom. Because the FinCom is chosen by the moderator, correct? So the first issue would be, the moderator could be anyone, and they use whatever criteria they have to put those people on the board, correct? The FinCom.
Right.
All right. So we hope that that person is going to make the right choices. All right? So the other point is, and you can't do a whole lot about that because whoever the moderator is going to do it, but if the FinCom was selected by the people who are the select board, they are the representatives of the population here in Danvers, so therefore the people in a roundabout way have actually selected the FinCom, who seems to have an extremely important role in the finances of the town.
Well, one
Well, the
thing to keep
moderator-
in member.
moderator's also
Moderator's
an
elected.
official.
Yeah,
Moderator.
the moderator is elected by the people.
Okay.
I also think that, I don't know if this is the intent, but I read it as the reason that that the finance committee is selected by the moderator is kind of a check on the select board. If the select board is appointing the finance committee, then there's no independence of the finance committee. So that's how I interpret it, is that sort of creates a check on the select board.
And my point came, the reason I thought about it was because of the idea of making sure that there was a connection to the people, because my experience has been one of the issues that always seems to come up is related to where the money is going, who's spending the money, how's it going, we don't have a say in it, so I just wanted to throw that out. I'm not really leaning one way or the other. It's just an idea that popped into my head about the people recognizing that they have a stake because of their elected official in whatever happens to the money in Danvers.
John, do you think the select board are more, I mean, the moderator's elected as well, so.
I get that, yes.
Yeah, but do you think that the select board is a better,
I really don't have an opinion. My opinion is that one person choosing 9, there is the possibility of all kinds of things that could happen. When you have a board, you've got, select board is what, 5? How many select board? 5? So you've got a less likely that the people who are on the FinCom committee could be in some way special interest, whatever. And I'm not saying that that's happening. This is just basically brainstorming, to be very honest with you. I don't have a particular stake in either way. It just popped up when I read this section, and that's what I thought about.
yeah, one thing that I would, kind of maybe to alleviate that concern, is that the moderator is elected every year. So if the moderator does something where, they're on a tight leash. So if we feel like the moderator is doing something funny with how the membership of the finance committee is being appointed, I think that could be nipped in the bud very quickly. So I don't have a problem with the way it works now.
Plus, when you think about it, the select board is very involved in the budget process, and as Noah mentioned, the moderator is not. And the FinCom members can't even be town meeting members. So their only role, they're not involved in approving the budget before, not one of the people voting to approve the budget at town meeting. They're not related to the select board who are helping to form it. So to me, it removes them from any appearance of impropriety, in my opinion.
Sally, there's more pages to that section.
Oh, you're right.
Very long.
So I just wanted to make sure that we were going to vote on the whole.
Thank you.
Also, I'm not sure why this section is even in here. It's in the Danvers Town Meeting Act, that in section 9, that there shall be a finance committee, 9 people, appointed by the moderator.
Yeah, I'm glad that you pointed that out, because remember at our earlier meetings, when people from various functions and roles within the town talked with us, and a couple of them pointed out that the Finance Committee's work is in both the Town Manager Act and the Town Meeting Act. And I think that that's fine, because finance committees are used in different ways in different cities and towns, as are moderators. And this makes it really clear in both places. If a citizen is going to go look it up, they'll find it in both places. And I don't really have a problem with that myself.
And it's not identical.
Well, no, not,
Yeah.
the beginning is. but
Yeah, yeah,
with the
yeah.
rest of it does. I did have another question just about the beginning with the appointment. Within 30 days after each annual town meeting, 3 members of said committee shall be appointed by the moderator to serve for 3-year terms. So does this generally work where whoever had the 1-year term the previous year just gets appointed to the 3-year term?
Well,
it-
go ahead.
No, go, that's.
So the initial language, I almost thought about scratching out, but it gives the historical, like when this act was first passed many years ago, when we first turned from, to a representative town meeting. It said, the town moderator was to appoint, for the first time, the Finance Committee. 3 of them with 3 years, 3 of them with 2 years, 3 of them with 1 year. And they were all on rotating schedules. So that's all done. That doesn't happen, that language began the FinCom way back. So now we're saying that every year, as people's terms expire, the moderator is to appoint 3 new people. So nobody on there now was put on for a 1-year term, because that was 50 years ago, 80 years ago. So
they serve on 3-year terms, and whenever it expires, if they want to stay on, the moderator, or if the moderator wants them to stay on, they will appoint them for a 3-year term again. Okay. So, should we?
Well,
Fix-
for other things, we did eliminate that first language, and that first town meeting language, that first town manager language, and maybe we don't need it. I don't know.
I like reading it. I think it's confusing to have it since we don't do that.
It survived other updates of the Town Manager Act.
It did, that's true.
Yeah, I think we need to just look at the whole rest of it before we can vote on.
Yeah.
So the rest of it, I'm sorry, is on pages 27 and 28. I'll go ahead and read it, because that's what we've done with the first paragraph of this section. All questions pertaining to the appropriation or expenditure of money, the creation of debt, the disposition of town property, and all other questions affecting the town shall be referred to the Finance Committee for the purpose of making recommendations to town meeting members. But nothing in this section shall be construed to prohibit the appointment of special committees to investigate matters pertaining to the town or to execute work authorized by it. Said Finance Committee shall have the power to consult with such departments, officers, employees, and committees as may have information concerning any matters under consideration, and it shall be the duty of all departments, officers, employees, or committees to furnish such information as they may possess, that they may be required by, I've kind of screwed this up, but they're supposed to furnish any information they possess that may be required by the Finance Committee. Said Finance Committee shall also have the power to examine, in connection with any subject under investigation or consideration, all books, vouchers, papers, and other instruments in the custody or possession of any officer, employee, or agent of the town. Before making recommendations under each article of the warrant, The Finance Committee shall hold public hearings in relation thereto after first notifying the Select Board, Town Manager, and Town Meeting members of the time and place of such hearing. Town meeting members are welcome and encouraged to attend such Finance Committee meetings. The Finance Committee shall report in writing to the town meeting all of its recommendations under the various articles of the warrant. The recommendation reported by the Finance Committee under any article shall be treated in the town meeting as a motion under the article. The recommendation shall be subject to amendment by a majority of the town meeting members voting on the motion to amend. If there shall be a majority and a minority report of the Finance Committee, the minority report shall have precedence over all other motions to amend the report of the Finance Committee. It's pretty much how things operate now, I thought. Back to Nova's question about whether we should include that initial, that first appointment of a Finance Committee way back when. Maybe we can pull that language out. I just didn't know how to create the three staggered terms otherwise in the language.
One other thing relating to that is the piece about vacancies, like a lot of the other sections that talk about memberships on boards, talk about if a vacancy is created, then a person is appointed to fill the remainder of the term. We might want to add that in, but I don't know that I would undo the historical thing here, because it does lay it out to where, okay, now it's in this position where people are appointed to replace the original, flowing out of that original thing. But I do think we ought to add a sentence about vacancies.
Yeah, but that board, the FinCom don't pick, wouldn't it be appointed by the?
Yeah, by the moderator. That's what I would, yeah.
But what you're saying is it's not really clear. I mean, I think it's assumed that it would be the moderator, but it's not explicitly laid out if there's a vacancy, right? Yeah.
Right, or if the yeah.
Yeah.
So if we were to crib the approach of like section 17, where this is the section on the municipal light board. If for any reason a vacancy occurs in the membership of the municipal light board, the vacancy shall be filled forthwith by said town manager for the unexpired term. So if we just, instead of municipal light board, finance committee, and instead of town manager,
It'd be
town
town
moderator.
Moderator.
With the appointing replacements, in the first paragraph, adding the language that they'll be appointed within 30 days after each annual town meeting, does that mean the 11 months of the year a replacement could not be appointed? If you could only be appointed in that one window of time? Does that bind? Would you therefore have to...
It's my proposal that we put in, that new members are appointed within 30 days after town meeting. I'm the one that proposed it because it just, sometimes there are vacancies that either somebody's term expires and they step down, or somebody has, steps down for whatever reason. So there have been plenty of times when it's not the full complement of 9.
And would that mean, though, if somebody left in September, you'd have to wait till May, because...
Well, it depends. I mean, John's language, I think, would allow for town moderator to appoint other, outside of this window.
Okay.
That's what I think.
All right.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we accept section 34 with the revisions discussed tonight.
I have one more question, just not about the beginning. And I don't know that we can change this, but I know that it's come up in the past. When the Finance Committee votes no action, and then it goes to town meeting, and town meeting disagrees with the no action, it still means no action. Like, still nothing happens, even though town meeting has disagreed with the Finance Committee saying no action. Is there anything is that just how it works? Or is there,
Well,
Amber?
I can tell you what I think.
okay.
The way it was always explained to me was that the Finance Committee's recommendation is the first motion on that warrant article. So I would think that a town meeting member, if the Finance Committee's recommendation is no action, I think a town meeting member could stand up and say, I have an amendment to that recommendation, and it'd be amended to whatever. We should take it up, it shouldn't be no action. And that is the amended matter that then would be voted on by town meeting. That's what I think. I'm not,
Yeah, but the procedural weirdness that you're talking about is if that doesn't happen, then there's a vote, and the vote is no.
Right.
Like not to accept the Finance Committee's recommendation, there's no action, because there's no motion other than no act.
well, let's say the matter was whether
Well, we just
to,
had, yeah, we had this with the recall.
but the vote wasn't just no action, the vote was to refer it to.
The first time it was, the year before, it was
And so
no action.
So somebody could have gotten up and say, no, I want to amend this recommendation by the Finance Committee and instead move that we accept the language as proposed in the citizens petition.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
That was a good example because I couldn't think of one.
Yeah, so, yeah, whatever, the year before last, it was put forward as no action, and then I believe town meeting disagreed with that no action. I can't remember exactly. But, but then still nothing happened, because it was, yeah. So that's just, I guess, it's just the way legally it works, that we have to put forward an amendment. We can't just vote no
a no
against.
action.
Yeah, to a no action.
It's a procedure,
Procedure
yeah.
like a-
Is there any effect, though, on, because I know we just had this at the last time meeting with the proposed zoning bylaw, and there was a recommendation of tabling it versus voting it down, so is there anything with no action that would change it coming back on the warrant next year, or being refiled? Is there any sort of consideration there of, if you vote no on no action, does that mean it can't come back again? I
Well,
don't know.
again, I think the response to the no action recommendation is for somebody to submit a motion to do something other than no action,
Right.
and have that be voted on, not just saying, no, we don't like the no action. You have to have an amendment. So I think it's like a Robert's Rules procedural matter, because the Finance Committee's recommendation is just supposed to be the first amendment on that.
Right, I guess what I'm saying is, to
article.
Nova's question, if the recommendation is no action, if an amendment isn't made, and we vote no on no action, I guess your question is, what does that mean?
I mean, yeah, it still just means nothing
Because if we vote yes on no action, we take no action. If we vote no on no
Take
action,
no action.
but that was my question. Is there anything that follows from that where they can't go on the warrant next year? Like, is there any repercussion for a no on no action?
Well, by
I
that,
don't
the
know.
example that was discussed, apparently not, because it
Right,
came up
'cause
the
it came
next
back.
year. Yeah.
Right,
Did
yeah.
come up
Well,
again.
think things
sometimes
can
I
always
think
be
it
brought
could
up
come
again.
back up, but written a little differently.
Okay.
So even if you change one word,
Right,
it's now
yeah.
different. So I think coming back, it can come back, that's what happened with the recall.
Right.
It came back with some adjustments to it, so.
Yeah, I don't know the procedural, but that's outside the language here in this act. This section of the act doesn't deal at all with the procedural matters. We can ask town moderator the answer to that question, but it's not that, there's no such language in here.
Right.
No, I know. I was hoping to just.
But now I'm
Yeah.
curious, so
No, I'm glad- it's good.
we can investigate this on our own.
We're going to form a committee. One other thing, the line that you added that says, town meeting members are welcome and encouraged to attend such finance committee meetings, that feels similar to that line that we considered putting in about having town meetings during the year where, but we didn't put that in because we can't really enforce this. So it feels unnecessary.
Oh, gee, I really worked hard on that sentence.
Oh, see, I think
Let's
it,
keep it.
I think it's good to reinforce that it is
It's easy.
open and that people, because I think it's less of a, you must do this, and more just reinforcing this is an open meeting, that you can attend. That's how I read it.
There are a
It's
couple
not
other
in
places
there.
in these acts that we've inserted some similar type of encouragement language. So, and maybe somebody will find it inappropriate and pull it out. But one of our themes, especially in our early meetings, were how can we get people more
Right,
involved?
engaged.
So maybe including that tone in the language we're proposing will matter, right? Language matters, right?
Should we change it to all of whom are encouraged to attend?
Okay, now,
Instead-
we're
instead of
close to
just-
the end. Come on, we can finish this tonight if we start picking on some of this
Instead of
stuff.
just town meeting, members are welcome and encouraged. If people are complaining about where the money goes, all are encouraged to attend, but it can, we can
I
leave it.
I
don't care.
appreciate, John clarifying the fact that the town moderator was elected, and that does satisfy some of my feelings about the people of Danvers being more connected with the decisions that are made with the money. But I still feel that the oversight of the select board, choosing those people who have such an important role in what happens with the budget, for me, is not enough is not enough citizen oversight, if you will. That's not a real, but that, for me, that's how I feel about that. So you don't need to convince me, but that's what I'm struggling with.
That's fine, yeah.
So,
Well, in a way, I don't know if this alleviates it or even addresses it, but the moderator is elected every year. Select board members are every 3 years, right?
and John's
That's what
point
we said,
resonated
yeah.
about saying that if
So-
something goes wrong,
So
the
it's
person
almost-
could be listed, but I guess.
It's a more immediate opportunity for the electorate to say, hey, I don't like what you're doing with FinCom, so I'm going to vote in somebody else. It's like more immediate than waiting 3 years, or the staggering of the 3 years of the select board.
Yeah.
And I do like what Sally said earlier. The select board ultimately presents the town budget to, to FinCom. So if the select board's selecting the people that are on FinCom, then some of those people might feel like an allegiant to the
Yeah.
board. So because, Mary Sue said on the select board, this is the budget, she appointed me, I feel like I should vote for her budget.
Yeah.
Just putting that as one of the reasons why the town moderator is the appointing official is because she's not, or they are not involved with the minute of the whole budget. She's running town meeting, and she is appointing a board that she, or he, or they feels will do the best interest for everyone in the town. So, I think it pulls out some maybe
Yeah,
monkey
no, I
muck.
kind of get that. I guess it's maybe not enough for me. That's how I feel.
I'm sorry.
Just an edit, I would suggest in the second paragraph where you had added.
What page are
On
we-
page 27, the fourth line down, it says to town meeting members. I think the recommendation goes to town meeting.
Yeah, that's true. It's true, it's to the body.
Yeah.
Okay, do we further discussion or a motion?
Regarding the
I
language.
had the motion, so we'll
Regarding the
wait for a
language
second.
about encouraging town meeting members, in the third paragraph, it does allude to that without coming up right out and saying it. The paragraph that begins before making recommendations, they first will notify the selectman, town manager, and town meeting members. So I think that's kind of suggestive of including all of those entities without coming right out and saying it in a separate sentence. With that said, I'll move to approve Natalie's motion.
Wait, what are we doing?
Seconding my motion.
But I didn't hear your motion.
So I made the motion that, with the edits that we've discussed tonight.
And Mike, you
Well,
seconded?
I was making a point. I'll second the motion, but I wanted to make the point that I think it already is in there.
Thank you. So are you saying you think we should pull that added sentence out?
I don't think it's necessary based on the sentence that begins with before making recommendations.
I lean towards leaving it in because reading comprehension is bad. I think being more explicit is really good in
Yeah.
this
Well,
case.
and the other piece of it is that, you know, the public hearings that are going to be held, I don't know, it's almost like the selectmen and the town manager are like built into the process leading to those public meetings, where the town meeting members theoretically are like, let's just sit back and wait. So maybe this explicit invitation is a good thing.
Recommendation.
Encouragement.
Yeah, encouragement.
So is our motion is the pending motion include this extra sentence, or does it not?
It was as written, except for the changes that we had discussed, that we agreed on.
I think kept that.
Yes,
So
we're going to
your-
keep that.
So your motion is to keep that language about
Yes.
welcoming and encouraging
Yes.
town meeting members. But, Mike, do you want that to be, is that what you want to second, or would you like somebody else to second?
I won't object with keeping it. I'm just saying I thought
Yeah.
perhaps it was a little redundant.
It was
but-
just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Right.
okay with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got
Any
it.
further
We got it.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
You're such a rebel.
We need a little,
Okay,
I think
so-
it's nice when we have a little dissent.
yeah,
It's
well,
nice
yeah.
when
We
we
need
have
a
a little
rebel.
dissent. It's good.
So my suggestion next is that we add a section 35, which would be the recall provision. I just suggest we just add it there at the end. Yeah, 35, correct?
No, I think it would now be 36 or 37.
So it would probably be 36, and then the last line becomes 37.
Well, the section we just discussed about the FinCom, that was section 34.
Yep.
So I'm suggesting we insert recall here at section 35.
And what about 35?
Then we change the next two as 36 and 37.
Oh, okay, you want it before that one. Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Makes more
Does-
sense there.
Yeah, that
I
makes sense.
just figured, because these others are more procedural.
Yep.
So I was going to suggest that we put the recall provision in its entirety, as we've approved it, as section 35 of this act. Is there a discussion on that idea?
No,
I was
Not to be-
thinking,
Not to be another rebel, but I would question, if you will, whether or not it might fit better under become a new section 12. In section 11, we've discussed the removal of the town manager. In section 12, we could propose the recall option for any elected official. Just a thought.
that's interesting.
Thematically, it makes sense.
It does. I'm just trying to think, were there other sections of the act that talked about removing people from positions, and I don't think there are.
No, I don't think
They
there
weren't
were.
elected positions, they were appointed positions, not appointed, they were vacancies based on
Right.
an appointed position.
Right, but that, yeah, not a removal, yeah. No, there wasn't.
So section
That makes a
12?
lot of sense.
Think
yeah.
recall section 12?
That would flow better.
Any further discussion? So that would
Um,
entail renumbering everything after that.
I was just thinking, and I don't know if this is really important for this discussion, but in terms of how we're going to present this to the select board and then subsequently to the finance committee and the town meeting, I guess it's up to the select board how it gets presented, but would it be presented as a separate, thing for the town meeting to consider? Like, here's the town meeting act, here's the town manager's act, and here's the removal provisions that would end up stuck back in here at section 12. But would again, I don't know that it's for us to decide, but what's the best way for these things to be decided upon by the various entities that are
Well,
going to have to vote?
I have some more information maybe on that in a minute, but I thought when we discussed the recall provision, we all felt that it should be in the Town Manager Act
Yeah.
and not the Town Meeting Act. And then we also had some discussion, but haven't taken a vote on it, of changing the name of this act from the Town Manager Act to, is something longer.
Yeah.
I don't have that note with me, because it doesn't just deal with the employment and responsibilities of the town manager. It deals with all of the positions that are appointed by the town manager and with other elected positions as well. So I think it was, I'd have to look back, this was a couple meetings back, to call it the Town of Danvers Governance Act or something.
But I think what John's getting at is, are voters going to want the opportunity to approve the recall on its own?
Well, again, when we passed the recall, I thought our vote included that we incorporated into this act. And if you think that wasn't what we voted on, if you think it should be a standalone, we could. I personally think it'd be better if it's incorporated in one of these acts.
But I guess that gets to the point, because then if voters are opposed to if voters say, we love the Town Manager Act, but we don't like the recall provision, is that, you know what I mean? Then, because that's probably going to be the most debated portion of this act, I would think, right? So I guess this is more a question of how the information is presented. Like, is it, if it's part of the Town Manager Act, can it be voted on separately by town meeting, or is it?
Any section could
Okay.
be. There
So
could
maybe
be a
that's part of the
motion made on
recommendation.
I was
floor.
going to say, somebody could make an amendment to remove it.
Okay.
I kept saying before that the FinCom's recommendation was the first amendment. I was misspeaking. I was thinking that something I was saying was wrong. It was considered the first motion.
Motion.
Yes.
The first motion. So anyway, at town meeting, somebody could move to remove
Okay.
the recall provision, or to modify it, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but I met with, let's see, I get my notes. I met on the 14th. I was asked to attend a meeting to kind of start talking about how this will flow moving forward, what the time frame would be. And I met with Dan Bennett, the chair of the select board, with Pat Frazier, the moderator, and with Rodney Coleman, the acting town manager, just to kind of get a sense of our timing. And in the near future, the select board is going to be involved with hiring the new town manager. There's also a town election, May 6th. The feeling among the four of us as we chatted about what should happen, how should this move, was that it shouldn't, that these two big acts that we've taken so much time to review and have all of our ideas in our report, that it shouldn't be done as part of the annual town meeting.
Right.
That's not fair to the process or to the citizens of the town and the town meeting members. So they were saying, it should probably be a special town meeting to deal with it, much like we've had special town meetings to deal with zoning changes. So then we started kind of kicking around, well, when could that be? And again, the select board have these big things coming up, the hiring of a town manager, an election. After election, they have their initial organizational meeting where they vote on who the chair is going to be. And that organizational meeting is after the May 6th election. So, and town meeting is May 19th. Trying to kind of walk through all this stuff. So, I would like for us to present a report so the select board has plenty of time to look at it before they're going to be asked to take action on it. So we're not dealing anymore with a March report. We're probably dealing with a report in May. That's my latest thinking. After talking with them, we all kind of agreed, probably a report in May, and that the select board would have chance to look at it probably at their mid-June meeting. So they'd have our report for about a month before they actually take action on it. So that's kind of, none of this is written in stone, but I'm trying to give a sense of where our work is going to be going, with probably a special town meeting called sometime after that. And special town meetings are generally in the fall. People are away a lot during the summer months, so it's usually like September, October, right? Isn't that when the specials are? So it's kind of further out than I was thinking, but we've made such strides. I mean, we've basically finished it, though there's one more thing, which is I suggest we add language about how frequently this act should be reviewed. And we could talk about that in a minute, which is why I said I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. But with that in mind, I think I think, as I just said, that if we insert the recall provision, it's at section 12, and it goes before the select board, if it goes before FinCom, if it goes before town meeting, any one of those stopping points, that could be something that is objected to, changed, pulled out, whatever. But I think it makes sense to have it be within this structured document that talks about the various jobs within the town. That's my thought. So, first of all, a moment ago, we were talking about adding the recall as section 35. The suggestion was made to change it to section 12. Should we have a motion and vote on that first?
Put that in motion.
I would motion that we consider inserting the recall election section as section 12 and renumbering subsequent sections thereafter.
I second that.
Any further discussion?
Yes, Sally. As I had voted against the recall provision previously, I will again here.
Abstain.
Nothing to do with the section number,
Okay.
but just with my prior dissent.
At first, I thought you were going to say that you're abstaining, but you're going to vote no on this. Okay, that's fine. I just want to make sure I understood.
Same for me, because I voted no for just like Dan.
Okay, so let's take the vote. Any further discussion? I don't mean to rush. Those in favor of inserting the recall provision as section 12 and renumbering subsequent sections?
Aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 2 no. Why don't I formally do it? Those opposed? Dan and Mary Beth, thank you. So, next, how often, and I can craft the language, it's just going to be the same as what's, I think, in the Town Meeting Act, that this act shall be reviewed every, how often? You think 10 years?
I think 10.
I would agree with 10 years.
I agree with that.
It could say reviewed every 10 year, or no later than every 10 years, or 10 years or earlier as determined by the town or something.
I don't know,
Any thought?
as I get older, 10 years seems less and less to me. I maybe would say 20 or sooner if requested by the town meeting, something like that. Like, I think 10 years is a blink of an eye.
I mean, I agree that it flies by, but I feel like a lot changes also in 20 years. Even though it flies by like 20 years ago, things were very different than they are right now.
And
would
I think
think
20 years.
2005.
In terms of how the town is run, though, I'm not sure. 20 years ago is 2005.
5?
I don't-
I mean,
That seems like an appropriate interval to me. I don't know.
15?
15.
We have a 15.
I mean, it could always be written that, I don't know, maybe the town considers a review every 10 years. I don't know. That way it's, if things haven't changed. I mean, I lean towards 10 year because I think, especially with how quickly technology is changing, there could be changes. Maybe some positions in here will no longer exist in 10 years. I mean, I don't know.
There might not be a tree warden.
Right. There might be a-
I think if it's reviewed
That
every
would
10 years,
never
it just would
happen
be a
if
much
there was-
quicker and smoother process, too.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I think it would be simpler.
yeah.
Right. There wouldn't be as much, there wouldn't be as much work to do. And if a town manager only stays another 10 years, I think it should be refreshed. You don't have to invent the whole wheel. It's just, you're going over it and seeing if it needs any tweaking at this point, because we've updated it so much. 10, I think 10 is good.
Yeah, and I guess
Reconvene.
maybe it matters in what we're asking to happen in 10 years. If it's just town meeting vote or something like that, like the town meeting could say, yep, everything's good, let's move on, as opposed to setting up a committee and, doing what we've done. So I guess it's like, what are we going to say happens in 10 years, if that's...
We could leave it up to, we could just say that it needs to be reviewed every 10 years, and then how they choose to do that, I guess, could be up to them. You could say with a subcommittee, or, I feel like a subcommittee is probably the way to go instead of just throwing it at town meeting and saying, hey, what do you guys think? Is it fine? Otherwise, because if they don't think it's fine, then you've got 150 people,
Well,
to
but-
deal with.
But the town meeting has to vote on the subcommittee. So that's how it happened this time. I presume that's how it happened last time as well.
Right, but if they had to, if you just asked town meeting as a whole, if they approved this as is, without without having this committee make adjustments, then town meeting, there might be one person that's like, section 18, so it could get a little unruly with that many people
Right.
wanting
But
to change it,
I think-
if they did.
If you added, that this act be reviewed every 10 years with an appointment of a subcommittee made by select board chair, moderator, and
The same ones who did it this time.
consultation with town manager, made up of town meeting members. Active town meeting members or something. I mean, you could put that in there, and then it's in there.
Yeah,
and the
but-
town meeting doesn't have to vote on that.
Yeah, but my point is that in 10 years, there might not even be need to take that step. Like, it might be that things are on cruise control, things haven't changed that much. We really don't even need to have a subcommittee. That's kind of my point. Like, my point is, I think,
So then they'd only have one meeting. They'd have one meeting, zip through it and go, yeah, we're good.
Right, 2 meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just,
I'm trying to think of what we
the
put,
odds of that?
in the
Slim to
town
none.
meeting act, and I don't remember exactly how we phrased it, and I'm sorry to say I didn't bring it with me. But I think we could just say that this act should be reviewed every 10 years, or at whatever, in whatever time frame town meeting decides, or something. I think this has been particularly difficult because it's been so long since it was reviewed. And I think 10 years,
yeah,
I think 10 years is okay.
yeah, so in the town meeting act, it says that it's reviewed by the town of Danvers at least once every 20 years or sooner. Yeah, because we voted on this then, didn't we? Yeah. As requested by a
Yeah,
majority
because I
vote.
was 10 years for that too,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you guys all thought 20.
Well, I think
And that in part was
the town meeting
based-
act is different than the town
Town
manager
meeting
act,
act in
though.
part was because it's based on the census so much.
Yeah.
This isn't, so I think a shorter time frame makes sense for this act.
But we said there 20 years or sooner, as requested by a majority vote.
Right.
So maybe we just use the same language that we had there. And if we want to tighten it to 10 years, but just use the same,
Use the same.
Yeah, that it's- that
Yeah,
it's-
so for consistency, but
yeah,
change the
that
20
it's,
to
that
10.
that the review is instigated by a majority vote of the town meeting members.
I would say that I like the previous wording. I also like the 20 years versus 10, but the previous wording is good so that you're not defining their process for
Right.
them. They can do whatever process they want, and you're not forcing a committee to meet for one meeting just to disband themselves. It would be
Right,
town
up to-
meeting at whatever meeting they were at,
Right.
just up or down vote.
It was
and
brilliant. It was
move
brilliant
on.
language, I think. So you know what I could do is draft it and just stick it in here, and then at our next meeting, I'll have the whole act with all the changes we've agreed upon to make sure everybody's comfortable with it, and try to send it out in advance. I'm leaning towards 10 years, but of course, I'm only one voice here. We've kind of talked around it. Shall we?
If I may, Sal?
Yeah.
Where did the warrant article, Article 7, which actually established this committee, where did that come from? Who initiated that? Who brought
The
that
select
forward?
board. The
Huh?
select board.
The Select Board. So they were the ones that obviously recognized the need to review this.
I think they got a lot of input from citizens, that it was, I don't think they just decided hey, we should maybe look at this. I think there was a lot of input from people saying, hey, can we take a look at this?
The only reason I bring that up was just that, another way of looking at it is that you put the responsibility for reviewing it in the hands of the people who have been elected officials, as this happened, actually, this is why we're here, and then they would, for whatever reason, say, I think we need to look at this. this is another point of view, rather than actually put a year on it, that it has to review every single 10, 15, 20 years.
But one of the problems is that there was no mechanism to trigger a review, and that people, I've heard from people that they want to have it clearly set in each act, that it shall be reviewed every so many years. So, and I think it's okay to leave it kind of open-ended enough so as to not be defining exactly how it has to occur. But I do think that we owe it to ourselves, but also to the town meeting in the town of Danvers to have a date by which it will be reviewed again.
I move that we add that section that says 10 years, just to get a gauge on where that's at.
So your motion is the language
Right, at 10 years of the,
from the Town Meeting Act,
right.
but at 10 years.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
Well, if I vote no, it's because I want to add a 20-year into it.
No, I know, I'm just
So
trying to get it.
just so it's clear, like,
Yeah.
if this motion is shot down, I will move for a 20-year interval.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so is there any further discussion? So our motion now is to use the same language as the review period set forth in the Town Meeting Act, but having it set at 10 years. Okay? Any discussion? Everybody understand what we're voting on? Those in favor? Why don't we do a hand so I can, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 yes? So that passes.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, how many noes? Those no? 1,
3.
2, 3. Mary Beth, how did you vote? I'm sorry.
Voted yes.
And Mike, did you vote yes too?
Yes.
4, 5, 6.
7,
3
8,
noes.
9, right.
Okay.
Let's just vote yeah.
Okay, sorry, guys. Then there's just 2 more quick sections. The numbering will change when we put the recall language in as 12, but one is the language repealing the prior act, which is just how the last Town Manager Act was phrased. And then, again, Section 37, that that it takes effect upon its passage. That, I can tell you, there's a little bit of wonder in there because town meeting will take it up and vote yea or nay. Then it has to go to the state legislature.
Right.
So who knows exactly, but that's the phrasing in the prior act, and if it worked then, I think it's got to work now. So,
I like the confidence.
so how about if we have a motion on both sections 36 and 37?
I'll make a motion to accept sections 36 and 37.
Second. Yay. We did it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so, one last thing, our next meeting is at Town Hall. The date is... I think I'd have that right at my fingertips, and I don't. It's 2 weeks hence.
I believe it's the 5th.
March 5th, yeah.
Peter Zuck has been in touch with me, and he intends to, he'd like to come to that meeting. Just wanted to let you know that. He's a former moderator, former select board member, former lots of stuff for the town. I am going to let him know that if he'd like to attend virtually, he can, but the last time I talked with him, he wanted to come, he wanted to be in the Toomey room. So I just wanted to let you all know that. Is there any question, anything we haven't done tonight that you feel we should have?
Oh.
Sally, the point about, we talked about way before, about the accountability for the town meeting members, we couldn't put it in the act, but we talked about doing something. How do we approach that? Could we put that on the agenda for the next meeting? Thank you.
Brainstorm some ideas, yeah. Good.
And in terms of the next meeting, are we going to be, are we anticipating a discussion on what that report will look like that's going to accompany, I presume, accompany a red line and, of the changes that we've suggested, but also an explanatory report? Is that going to be the subject of discussion at the next meeting?
Yes, I think that it should be.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
John?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
You guys do a heck of a job. Look at this. It's 10 past, we finished the act.
Right.
Are you proud or what? Congratulations.